Welcome to Chapter and Verse. Our guest is Camilo Viveris from the Wiley Center in Pawtucket. We had the Wiley Center years and years ago, 2 different times.
Right. We had Henry, and we had the guy in the program that you saw on the internet.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for having us.
He's from PC, was it?
Yeah, Jack Colby, and he's been a volunteer with the George Wiley Center and a lot of issues working on hunger.
Still there?
He comes to different hearings, and he's always an important voice in policy debates. And
yeah, he's wonderful.
He is. I know he made a very big impression on us.
What was the other gentleman? A former Catholic priest?
Right, Henry.
Henry.
Henry
Is he
Shelton.
okay? Because I know he had some health problems.
Well, which is
common with all of us.
Yeah, I mean, we just had a retirement party, and it was really beautiful.
He retired?
He did, but you know, he'll never retire from trying to make the world a better place. So we kind of, it was, you know, we called it a retirement party, but we really know that it was an opportunity for people to come and share his impact on our lives, and it was really beautiful. People came from all over, all walks of life. It was really nice.
Oh, he deserves that.
Yeah, beautiful. It was touching. I learned a lot about things that I didn't even know he had done, you know, so it was really nice.
How long has he been in the field? For a long time. He got involved in the 1960s or 70s?
Sure. So he was a Catholic priest, I believe, in Providence and Central Falls, and really he dedicated his life to helping the poor, and then became an organizer. And that's where the story of the George Wiley Center begins, because he met George Wiley, who was working on similar issues. They had worked together for some time. And
Is George Wiley still alive?
Well, he passed away when he was in his early 40s, and Henry brought a group of people together, and they realized, well, the struggles that he was working on, racial justice, economic justice, they were still there. So they needed to continue organizing. And that's how the George Wiley Center was founded.
Oh, that's terrific.
So, you know, a lot of people look back and maybe they know a little bit about Martin Luther King, or they look at the civil rights movement and think, oh, that's something from the past. But the reality is, organizing, we have to constantly organize, you know, and come together.
Isn't that an important word? Constantly.
Constantly,
Don't
you
give
know,
up.
persistence. We really have to stick together. 2018 is the anniversary of the Poor People's Campaign, which both George Wiley and Martin Luther King were involved in. And George Wiley actually encouraged Martin Luther King to get involved in that.
Oh.
And
yeah. Wow.
Yep. So when Martin Luther King passed away, he had plans to meet people in Washington, D.C. to continue the push to really make things better in the richest country on earth, that we don't need to have poverty here. And
George Wiley was from the Ocean State?
Yes, from Rhode Island. He lived in Warwick, and his family members, his dad, I think he worked in the Postal Service. They were part of forming one of the early African-American newspapers here. And he had
Interesting.
He had an established career as a chemist. He went to Cornell University.
Smart guy.
Yeah, people, I don't know much about his profession, but his peers say that he had a really promising future in chemistry. I don't really understand what his academic contributions were, but I do know that he got swept up in the spirit of the changes in society that were going on in the 60s, and he became an organizer with CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality, a field organizer, and he just got more and more involved and started working with women who he had met through civil rights, formed the National Welfare Rights Organization, and that
They really used him.
Oh, really? I mean, it's really beautiful, and that the church, obviously, we know had a tremendous grounding in the civil rights movement, the gospel music. It helped really people face the difficulties, and we know the history of this country. I mean, some of the same gospel songs that people sang during civil rights and even till this day came out of people struggling for freedom. That contradiction, right?
Yes.
Slaves going to church and
Yes.
praying about Moses, praying about freedom, and challenging
Praise God.
other people, right? that had a different view of what they thought it was following to be Christian. And so luckily, that tragedy of slavery obviously ended, but there still is a gap.
It is a tragedy.
It is.
I like the way you
It is. It really.
express it.
It's a huge tragedy.
Of slavery.
Yes.
It breaks my heart.
Yep. And I think these days we're finding out more and more the role of the North. I don't know if it's similar with you, but when I went to school, it was kind of seen as something that was a Southern institution.
Yeah.
But fortunately, it's coming out more and more how it wasn't that simple, right? There were people that were benefiting from these horrible situations. So,
Mr. Brown had a university named after him, Brown University. He was involved in slavery.
yep. So the affluence, people who benefit off of others' exploitation, and then there's a different way of organizing, which is organizing with others. Sharing, equality, respect. Things that many of us see as the golden rule, as the challenge of looking around us, caring for your neighbor, figuring out how can we be part of creating a better community together. And so the struggle, it looks different every generation, every different time.
Yeah.
How beautiful. When he said that, Ray, when Camilo said that, the beauty of creating a better community together,
Yes.
it's like a beautiful flower blossoming from the Lord. How beautiful.
Oh, it is. I mean, some people think that, our actions speak to our faith. We have to believe that there can be a better way. And we also are called to act on our beliefs of that and have faith together.
Don't just talk.
Yeah,
Where's
we
the
have to
action?
work together. We have to challenge, make sacrifices sometimes. Sometimes it's risky. It's risky to sometimes. I mean, I said this at Henry's retirement party that, sometimes you do have to turn over the tables of the money handlers. It's always better to give somebody a chance, and hopefully we can appeal to somebody's moral higher ground. But we can't ignore our brothers and sisters that are suffering, and we have to help people sometimes.
It's a bright
convince them.
light. You bring a bright light and humanity to the difficulties of people who are struggling, our brothers and our human brothers and sisters. I've been thinking that there's a contemporary issue of elective abortion. That seems to be the slavery issue of our day. And I feel sometimes that I understand the plight of the abolitionists, because I can see the people struggling to bring protection to the unborn children.
I mean, the value of human life in our society, we're surrounded, whether it's the death penalty, wars, unjust wars. I mean, there are so many ways, or turning off utilities of our neighbors, right, and turning a blind eye to that.
This is nice, Camilo. Rhode Island Utility Consumer Rights. And this here, I just read it.
Yeah.
50% forgiven, of a bill.
Yeah, so that's called the Henry Shelton Act, and how that came into being was a year before I got involved. Henry had been organizing and doing grassroots lobbying at the State House, and he had a stroke, and as a testament to his persistence, they named the legislation after him when they passed it, and it's the best payment plan that's available. I'm sure if you asked Henry if he was totally satisfied, I think you'd know his answer, that we have to continue. We have to constantly try to improve the situation for those around us. We can't be content or complacent. But
You
it
get up
did.
there to the State House usually?
Sure, and for me, what's most important is the people who are directly affected. So making sure that
They come with you.
Yeah, because they're my inspiration. That's why I became an organizer. Because as an individual, you can get down. You can. You can feel overwhelmed, and the reality as an individual, there's only so much we can do, but it's together. So to me, organizing the unorganized, bringing people, and
Power in numbers?
yeah, in numbers, and recognizing that we're not just numbers, right? That to National Grid, sometimes to corporations, we're a number, but to the stories, the people that I work with that inspire me, they might feel inspired by me, motivated by me, because I can see that they're a valuable person, that their voice should matter, even if they're not told that. And then I'm inspired by them because at the State House, it's no secret. If you just go there by yourself, eventually they can ignore you, especially if you're not making campaign contributions, which isn't our model. Our model is, let's go, a group of people, we go together and we make that connection. And for a lot of folks that we go up with, it's the first time they've been to the State House. And it can feel alienating. So there's a lot of work that is involved in before that, having meetings at the George Wiley Center, having meetings across the state, explaining it, why it's important to get involved, how your voice should matter and it could matter. And so one of the ways we explain this to people is by going over some of the past victories, because often people feel like they're powerless. So by talking about the Henry Shelton Act, and I often talk about how Henry, even after he had a stroke, he would struggle physically to do the lobbying. And when people hear those stories of persistence, how people are so determined no matter how difficult, you start to think, well, actually, maybe I can get a little more involved, right? Yeah. So I try to, I try to talk about how George Wiley, he was an organizer. Henry Shelton, he still is an organizer. And what are the things that, it's not always easy, we can't guarantee, but we're not going to get anywhere if we don't try. And so, like one of the stories I share a lot is about the infant protection in Rhode Island. We have the strongest infant protection in the country, twice as strong as any other state.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So it's something we should be really proud of.
How do we protect the infants?
So how that campaign happened was ordinary people were around a table and were asked, well, how do we, what should we do about this problem of children who are living in dangerous situations where the utilities are shut off? And the George Wiley Center decided to actually try to get protections for children under 6. Now, if we had kind of consulted with the experts, they probably would have said, you have to try just for children 1 year or younger, because that's the most they have in other states. Yeah. But because we organized around what ordinary people thought were possible, we were able to achieve twice as strong protections.
Oh, gosh.
So to me, that's the moral of sometimes the vision and the hope of common sense, of caring for your neighbor. It's more powerful sometimes than the most highly educated so-called expert. That we're all experts on compassion and love, and we can try to think about how can we care, what's in our heart, what would really make sense for our communities. And really, the society, the policies that govern society should reflect our values.
Yeah.
And most people feel disconnected from that, but we're trying to connect it better. And it's not going to change overnight, but little by little. So for the infant protection, if you have a child under 2 and your median income is 65% or lower of the median income for your household, then they just simply cannot shut your utilities off as long as that child's under 2. And you have to fill out the proper paperwork. And that's a lot of the information that we give out at our meetings is, okay, you know, what do you need to fill out? What are your responsibilities to make sure your rights are going to be respected? But it's really made a huge difference for families that are struggling. Already, there's so much taking care of a child. I can't really imagine if you're going to add on top of all those obligations, worrying about the utilities. And our experience is people still make budget payment plans. They still try their best during that time, but at least they don't have to worry about the worst case scenario, which it would be being shut off. And if you have children and your utilities are shut off, you are at risk of losing your children, right? Because it's actually, it can be illegal to have improper housing, right? So and who pays for those facilities? It's the taxpayers. So we're trying to be thoughtful about not just caring, but also thoughtful and help people think about things compassionately and really figure it out, the math of it, the finances. It doesn't even make sense, you know, to shut somebody off when they're behind and then their children, the horror of that. But even if you were to ignore the human element, putting somebody in an orphanage or, you know, a group home,
that costs money.
It costs money. It costs more money than whatever it is National Grid is going to get or the utility is going to get from shutting them off. So that's what we're about, is people who are directly affected, us coming together, coming up with real solutions and making them happen by organizing. And we're persistent. We worked on a lot of issues. Universal breakfast programs was another big program that Henry worked on, and many people across the state. The simple idea that kids shouldn't be hungry, right? You shouldn't go to school and in the morning, if your family doesn't have the resources to give you breakfast, let's make sure people have a chance. And we know that it affects people's ability to concentrate. It affects their grades. So little by little, taking steps toward the kind of society, the kind of world that we want to live in, that we can be proud about, right? That we can make sure that everyone's taken care of. So that's really the path. And, you know, there's a long way to go, but we have these glimmers of hope. Universal breakfast program across the state. Infant protection, the Henry Shelton plan, which allows for people who have gotten behind on their bill, if they're eligible, they can save more than half of their bill. It's the only plan like that. So trying to make things to get better by working together. And that's basically what organizing is. And, you know, it has a name, but I think as long as we've been around, people have always tried to work together, figure out how can we make things better. And it's become a career. You know, I was the only organizer at the George Wiley Center for a while, but the only way you actually have success is when everyone is doing organizing, right? That it's not based on one staff person. It's our ability to work together, and each person.
Reminds me of the body of Christ. All the different branches.
Working,
the tree of God.
Yeah, working together. All of us have special skills to share, and that's the best. You know, we just were talking about. We had a meeting a couple nights ago, And there are new medical forms that came out of a recent struggle because we were finding that people had medical conditions and they were being shut off illegally.
Do you have a tape about that?
We do.
Video?
Would we like to watch it?
Yes.
That would be great.
Well, when they're ready.
Okay, sure. So yeah, we found that out, and we worked with a group called the Center for Justice, and some of the plaintiffs. We're ready to roll.
Come home. I want you to make sure that National Grid will pay for my funeral, please. Make sure that they will pay for my funeral, okay? I haven't been on my big machine for 2 nights without help, and I am very sick. Make sure that they pay for my funeral, National Grid, please. I have no help for nobody else. Thank you.
I was born in Puerto Rico, home to Puerto Rico, and I come over here around 50-something years ago, and I worked on a lot of factory all over Rhode Island, and I raised 5 boys and a daughter, and oh my God, what a story. I want to see my grandchildren. I'm gonna spend time with them. I can't go fishing too much anymore like I used to, but I go fishing with my grandchildren, and every time they catch a little fish, I'll be so happy. You know?
I think I've been here over 30 years. I've been working for the longest time, and time is becoming more harder and harder to survive, you know. I have 5 kids, a total of 5 kids. 3 are pretty much raised, but 1 stays with me, which is 24 years old son. And then I have the teenage and, of course, my dear 6-year-old.
My name's Shane Ward. I live in Pawtucket, been here for 10 years. I live here with my mother. My mother came down with Alzheimer's about 2 weeks after she retired. She just went downhill quick. It's a fast, aggressive Alzheimer's.
And I won.
Yeah, you did. You did okay.
Just
right?
what?
It's hard taking care of someone with Alzheimer's. It's very hard. But it's family, and I made a promise to her that she wasn't going to go to a nursing home.
No, you didn't help to help
She
me.
asked me. She kind of knew she was going to get sick.
Well,
So I said, "Don't worry, Mom. You know, you're not going."
who goes going to
She's not.
let out of my life? Let out of my life. Let us speak.
Okay.
Let us lead us speak.
Mom, it's okay. Shh. Okay.
This little machine helps me, you know, breathe. Without this little machine, I have a hard time breathing. It's like a fish. You ever took a fish out of a bowl to go transfer it to another bowl? And if all of a sudden it slips and it falls, you gotta grab that fish real quick. And it's all sucked in because you don't put that fish in water and you don't have the water that it needs, or don't have this little bit of bubbles, it's gonna pretty much die.
We're not trying to get out of paying the bills. We want to pay our bills. We want to be a part of this community. I had come up with $1,100 in 2 days. I had to get my medication too. I've been 3 months and I didn't have mine. That I put the money towards the bills and towards her medication.
The utility, oh my God, it goes up to $200-300 a month. Now the winter's coming, it's gonna go over higher. How many diabetic probably go without eating? Sometimes I don't even want to eat because I don't have enough money.
Things happen. Expenses come up. You fall behind in a gas bill, your electric bill. It happens. You know, we're not bad people. It's just that we're just going through bad times. You know, it happens. You do what you gotta do. It's family. time they shut it off, my mother was on a respiratory machine. The gentleman pulled up. I said, oh, God, here we go. I said, okay. I said, look, I said, Bud, give me a few minutes. My mother's on a respiratory machine. I got to switch her over to the tanks. Get her switched over so, you know, when we shut it off, she's not going to go into shock or start a seizures. Didn't say anything. I asked him again. I said, buddy, please don't shut it off. Yeah, give me a few minutes.
Yeah.
I changed my mother over to the tank. She's on a respiratory machine, okay? Didn't do it.
Oh.
Asked him one last time. It's okay.
Boy.
It's all right. He shut us off when she was still on the machine. My mother started having the jerks, starting to have a seizure. Okay, I'll be honest with you, I wanted to rip the guy's head off. I mean, I wanted a piece of him bad, okay? Be honest with you. And I said, I gotta take care of my mom. I let it go, and I ran in, took care of her, got her a Klonopin, gave her a Klonopin, and I stopped it. But part of me wanted a piece of him. It's like, how dare you? You couldn't even wait 2 minutes to let me take her, you know, set her up, and then you could do your thing? I mean, really?
And my life depends on electricity. And I asked him, why did you want to shut my electricity off? He said that it's my job, and National Grid ordered me to shut it up. So it's my job to do it. I hate to do it, he said. He said he hates to do it. He said, I wouldn't like to do it because I know your life depends on it, but it's my job, and I have to do it, so he did it. And I had to run to the hospital right away. I ended up in the hospital right away. He left. He shut us down. He left. I left too. I went to the hospital. They kept me in the hospital for about 15 days. And every day, they let me come back here, but then every day I had to go back running to the hospital for help. And then I went to McDonald's to charge my little portable oxygen machine. I went to the laundromat to charge it up. I put a cable from the net door enable. I was giving it $10 a night for 2 months.
I think more than 3 months. More. My teenager, she is going through and still is going through her mental issues. It's been hard, very hard. And wanting to have my daughter home, and I couldn't have the light, could bring her home because the lights were off. And when a teenager or anybody has mental issues, you don't want to put them in the darkness because they're already depressed. They feel dark. And this one pretty much was in daycare at that time. And I would take her to daycare just to drop her off, but she can't be in the house in darkness, you know. It was better for her to be in somewhere that she can be.
Serious, Mommy? I don't like daycare.
We know you don't like daycare.
I don't trust National Grid anything they say, because everything that's said out of their mouth has been a lie. Like they said, if we got a medical concern paper from her doctor saying that she needed it on, we could get it on right away. So I did that. I got everything, sent it over there. Supervisor came in and seen the paperwork, and he turned around and said, no, you can't have it on. But the thing is, to me, it's that checkbox that says losing power or gas could cause the person to lose his life, and that's checked. But National Grid still shuts you off.
You know, I give them the papers, they say don't receive it. It's just been a roller coaster ride with National Grid. I mean, and we need it to survive.
I think the state should have an investigator to investigate before they shut the electricity off to anybody else like me, because I'm not the only one.
You got to put a stop to it. Rhode needs to step up, take care of its people, and put an end to this with National Grid.
justice to be done, it needs to be done today. That's it.